new Strange type game came out a little while ago, and wouldn't you know it, I didn't know it was coming out, I wasn't interested in playing it, and I wasn't gonna cover it because I wasn't gonna pay the money to play it. Then PlayStation decided to slap that game onto PS Plus, and I said, let's check it out. What's the worst that could happen? It's about as bad as the last Strange type game I haven't finished or talked about yet? I don't know what to expect here, and I'm writing this intro and story recap before I play it in any capacity. Hi, Glazed Ham from the future here. What I meant by I'm writing the story section when I haven't played the game yet, it meant I was writing it as I was going, so I literally knew nothing about it as I was writing about it. Okay, cool. Just wanted to clarify because I felt like past me was a little bit stupid. Alright, enjoy the video. Bye. So we're just gonna hit on the usual topics of the story, the characters, the music, alongside the extra questions I have, like, is this a good Strange type game? Am I gonna play the second part when it comes out? Is this a proper representation of Midwest America? And more. Buckle up, everybody, and let the son of rage and love drive you up to Michigan, because this is Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, Tape 1. We start this adventure with a phone call from Mom, bitching about book club, we're in modern day, and I must be the records the way I'm lost. I thought this shit was about 1995. Where's all the melancholy and the infinite sadness and timely references to Seven? Anyways, we talk about things not needing to have happy endings, and boy am I preparing for the worst. Keep chatting, learn more about that bitch Carol from book club, tell Mom to make new friends, and holy shit, we've got a dedicated photography button! Anyways, we apparently just got home from the airport. Hometown is looking a little run down. Mom starts talking about Christmas. Then, oh god, she's asking about when we're coming to see her, talking about how COVID and shit made it hard to go do that. And oh, just shoot me now. Anyways, we're in the abyssal town of Velvet Cove, Michigan, to meet some friends we made back in 1995 and make good on a promise we made back then or something. We apparently don't remember much from that time, and I'm getting the sinking suspicion that I'm not the target demographic for this one, chat. Mom tries to pry, I'm putting the pieces together, and who cares? We get to name the cat! The options aren't great, but say hi to the cat Pumpkin, which I'm hoping means it's a fat-ass tabby that should be named Garfield because this is the Midwest, and your choices will have consequences? We couldn't even use the line? We really couldn't use the line, this action will have consequences? Anyways, I promised to visit Mom around the holidays, and because I said that, I have the chance to tell her we'll visit her in Vancouver if we have the chance, which is something I suppose, and then we hang up and start texting some chick named Autumn. We get some flashbacks to whatever female Stand By Me remake thing we got ourselves into, leave the car, and get thrown right into a flashback for 2 seconds? What? Why? Okay. Well, whatever the case may be, we're finally playing the game, and I don't like that we're in first person, or how every single object triggers memories. I mean, everything, by the way. Anyways, we're at a bar meeting up with everyone, I guess, and let's head on in, shall we? And I don't know why I expected to go into a bar, but we're now back in 1995 in our childhood bedroom. We are now finally back to the standard Strange type over-the-shoulder third-person camera we all know and love. And despite my claims earlier, I am the son of rage because I am not feeling much love at the moment. Mom is bitching at us about all these things that we have to do, and in our own little world, we're mostly concerned with returning our VHS rental tape of The Dark Crystal. Examine and explore the room, realize I have some things in common with our protagonist Swan, then pack some shit up and head into the real world. But before we do that, we're introed to our main collectible mechanic, the camcorder. Since we're a filmmaker type, we need to record as much of everything as we can to make the best documentary ever. We then leave our room and we're back in the bar. We sit down and reminisce some more over the random objects laying around the bar, and whoo boy are we in for a long-ass journey here. I mean, we haven't seen a single other named human character yet, and I'm losing my shit over here. Anyways, Out in a nature flashback, we record all sorts of fun things, like squirrels banging on a tree, and then we leave to explore the rest of the world. We walk past all sorts of things we saw in the intro, and I wonder if this is gonna be a Stand By Me type story. Before we can speculate much further, we snap back to reality and meet the bartender Gus. He's a weird looking dude, but he does point us in the direction of some lady who looks to be about our age, and we then slowly get drip-fed more information from Swan about what the hell happened that night in '95, and at this point I'm praying this is not just Stand By Me, because I'm thinking it's gonna be a lot like that. Anyways, get your phone on a charger, go to take a piss, and there's obviously a lady in the bathroom, so obviously it's time for another fucking flashback. I'm gonna have an aneurysm. Holy shit, dude. We finally get to return that videotape, and as the nearby ice cream place shuts down, we finally meet our other named characters, our new friends Autumn and Nora. I met them very late because I was too busy filming random shit because that's what's fun to me. Anyways, meet the weirdos, talk a little, be incredibly awkward because I am not God's chosen guy, and now I'm wondering how the hell you're supposed to make friends before snapping back to reality. Here we meet Autumn in the present, give her a hug, and then go take a piss. Which means flashback time! We're gonna go home, and after talking a smidge more with Autumn and Nora, we film a red balloon on a fence, which triggers someone named Dylan to lose her shit at us, thinking we were filming her. She's a bitch, she calls us ugly and directly, quote, a lesbo pervert. We taunt her, then her brother and/or boyfriend Corey appears. We film him even more, and I eventually bail because I gotta skedaddle. He then threatens me to keep rolling, I cave, and I'm just trying to survive. Then we meet the fourth one of our group, Kat. She's Dylan's sister, and she's the best of the main characters just based on vibes alone. Anyways, the rest of the gang comes over to our rescue, and we're going to the movies. Fuck you, Dad's dinner, I've gotta go have friends! Corey steals the keys and throws them, and we keep fighting. Kat is about to rip these bitches a new one, and we've got friends until the end. Now we go meet up with Autumn in the present and talk about how life has been. I let her talk about her main points, and now we can talk about the summer and everything that's gone on. And oh boy, Autumn is also having flashbacks! If this is secretly Stand By Me meets The Lost Boys, I'll be very happy and pleasantly surprised. Anyhows, it's time to go back in time again because we've spent like 3 whole minutes in reality. It's dark now, we're still looking for those keys, and boy, this is just Stand By Me with lesbian undertones. Anyways, introduce ourselves, everyone is cool about it. We hang out, Nora is smoking, and in a quiet moment we get voiceover from current day Swan and Autumn, and then we're back to the moment where we can talk to one of the girls specifically. And you know my ass beelined straight to trying to flirt with Kat. We then get asked about the filming we do, we talk about how we are filming whatever as a means of making a memoir, we launch into the shit I should film, and I side with Kat, because of course I did. We then learn more about Autumn and Nora. They have a punk band, and if we don't get a single Green Day song, especially because it's 1995, I'm gonna lose my shit. Sorry, where was I? I keep siding with Kat. She mentions Bikini Kill, and I will say I'm proud I caught the reference because I don't know a ton about them outside of the lead vocalist famously writing "Kurt Smells Like Teen Spirit" on the wall of Kurt Cobain's bedroom, which is where the name of the iconic and severely overplayed Nirvana song got its name, at least according to legend anyway. Anyways, I do shoot down Nora because I want to go home, but the game tricked me and now I've got to help Autumn with her shit. We find the keys fast, and then we're back to reality for like 2 minutes reminiscing about how we were drawn together for something. And oh boy, I overestimated the 2 minutes because we're back in the past playing shitty games that suck ass. We're looking for keys and stuff, and this is a really open segment where you can just kind of do whatever. Talk to the girls, shoot some video, all that good stuff, and it looks cool, honestly. Anyways, I talked to Nora kind of out of mistake, and it's a normal conversation that then turns into her asking if we've got a boyfriend, and then she drops, "If I were a boy, I'd kiss you." And I wish I could properly convey the scream I let out because I panicked. And oh god, the responses are not great. Which is why I used my panic to say, "You're lying to me." Because Kat is the only one of them that I like, and also Autumn in the future chimes in with a comment about how Nora always had the horn or some shit. I don't care. I then messed with a seesaw for a while before talking to Kat and expanding the lore, getting an obligatory voiceover commentary on slut-shaming when they talk about how much of a whore Dylan is, and when Kat starts talking about how awful Dylan and Corey are, we can make a move and offer her the chance to crash at our place tonight, or just play it more safe. I took the chance and was rewarded with a relationship up. She does shoot us down, but she thinks we're funny and she'll take a rain check on that. So progress is made, baby! She thinks we're weird, but she likes us for it, and I had some good intuition on picking the best character. I don't know how I do it so fast. Anyways, now it's time to talk to Autumn and help her find some shit to throw, explore further and further into this junk area, and in this homeless camp there's a piece of graffiti of a crow with a halo that says R.I.P. Brandon. And given that this is set in 1995, only a year after the movie version of The Crow came out, this is a reference to Brandon Lee and The Crow, which is a really cool reference that no one is gonna catch. But I did. Anyhows, we find a brick, Autumn tells a shitty dad joke, and we're off. Before that though, I do need to mention the grunge mixtape on the ground of this camp, because it's got some interesting choices, but I'll save it for the music section later. Take our brick, get jump scared by a raccoon or something, and then reunite with the rest of the gang. We have to throw the brick twice because Autumn
never had the makings of a varsity athlete.
And thanks to my amazing powers of intuition, I covered the nearby grate with cardboard earlier, and we were able to get the keys a lot easier and faster. And then the rocket falls, and we talk about seeing each other again, and we get a title card! Now we're back to the future, present, we can talk a bit more, and we find that Autumn has a kid, and eventually we're gonna get some drinks, which means it's flashback time! Again! We're interviewing Autumn, and we finally get even a hint of Midwest mannerisms when she says drink pop, but as a John Midwest myself, it's soda. It's drink soda. That's the correct formatting, and I digress. We film her, do some interview stuff, and we're gonna get drinks in reality. Gus is trying to figure out the computer system, and I didn't want to bother him until he finished doing his thing, but I couldn't wait all day, so I got his attention and ordered Autumn a rum and coke, her childhood favorite, and Gus guesses that I want a gin and tonic, and you know what, man? Sure, sounds good. He makes our drinks, and when the music plays, I hear the sound I had to follow, Once Upon a Time, in yet another flashback. We're in our bedroom, filming our own little intro, and we have to give the show a name, which means welcome to The Swan Files, because The X-Files was a massive thing at the time. It's got a couple of moments that are a little cute and feel close to home, but it's nothing too special. We do also get a little more into the backstory of each character, describe how we feel about the girls, and all that starting with Nora. We talk a little bit about her. I could have called her pretty, but I've got my mission set on a different girl, as you all know. Then we talk about Autumn. She's cool. We talk about how she told Corey off, all that shit, and we're finally on to Kat. I chose the most flirty of the options because she's actually the cool one of the group, and our explanation of her has the lesbian undertones I'm sure the other flirty options do. Then it's time to properly introduce ourselves, and gee dang, do these options hit a little close to home. Back in the present, we get our drinks I paid directly, no tab, and then got roped into talking to this old lady. Her name is Pam. We happened to run into her for a bit before, and I like the dynamic between her and Gus, even if they aren't together. Anyways, sit down and tell Autumn you got her old favorite drink, and we're talking about how we used to not like drinking, blah blah, character growth shit. We cheers to our reunion and all that. Autumn talks about how she wasn't sure we'd actually come back, but like their very obvious source material and inspiration famously ends with, I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus, does anyone? So of course we did. She talks about how we apparently said we'd never see each other again. I said the polite option of I missed you, and I'm so sorry. I cannot sleep, I cannot dream tonight. And I can't believe I just made a reference to Blink-182. What the fuck is wrong with me? She talks about the past. I made the choice to say that the past is in the past and leave the past behind, which is horrifically ironic for both me and this game. We talk about our missing memories from 27 years ago and how we need to wait until everyone else is here, and I dance around asking what did I come down here for, and in my heart I know it's you. But there's still some kind of stand by me type shit happening here that takes priority. I keep delaying the inevitable by fleshing the world out as much as I can, and we do get confirmation that Autumn is gay, and this surprises no one. She thanks us for taking the time to talk and catch up, and it's nice enough. Now we finally learn why we came down here from the Great White North. Autumn's mom got a strange package addressed to Bloom and Rage, and oh dear God, this is I Know What You Did Last Summer, isn't it? We reminisce over the box, and we're back in the past again. It's garage band time, and practice hasn't started yet. Autumn thought we wouldn't show, and then we settle into the groove. I filmed some shit, talked to Kat, told her about the squirrel sex. She calls us kinky because it was the 90s and we didn't call people freaky like that yet. But we do talk about cryptids, and oh god, Kat witnessed a deer walking on its hind legs, and since we are in Michigan, we can say Wendigo and be regionally correct. Also, Kat mentions that the deer was massively erect, which did get a laugh from me. I said more to try and get on her good side, and then I finished recording and practice got to start, but not yet since Nora doesn't have a pick. She stores them in the video tower, and among all the real movies sits a cassette labeled The Vortex Club, and aww, we did get a reference to Life is Strange after all. Anyways, I gave her the ghost pick because I wasn't paying attention to her request for a Tharp pick, and I don't care. We get more backstory things, and eventually the music starts, but not really. We sit down, get thrown on the spot about our favorite band, and since The Cure isn't an option here, I said I'm more of a film nerd. Now, in reality, we talk movies, and boy, do I love me some horror movies. Like, dude, have you seen The Substance and Late Night with the Devil? In terms of contemporary releases, those are incredible movies. Anyways, in the past, we name-drop Interview with a Vampire, and more importantly, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We get invited up on stage to play the drum machine, we accidentally knock over the stool, and send the machine crashing down. We laugh about it now, but back then we say we're cursed, talk skaters, Autumn says see you laters about the skaters, and blah blah blah. We do get to start the show, and I'm glad they have a I don't know what I'm doing option, because, yeah, what am I doing here? Slap a drum machine loop together, record them, play some shitty garage music, and say we're done. Kat is inspired to write a song, and we get roped into directing a music video, and god, I feel right at home in this shit. Very real Midwest shit, I tell ya. But, set all of that aside, we gotta get a band name. And I wonder what's it gonna be. I wonder if it's the name of the game. And how did I call it? How does he do it, chat? Anyways, or anyhows even, it's time to make a music video, which mostly means dicking around in the woods, which I'll admit is a very Midwest feeling activity, so I guess they got one thing right. That and some good old underage drinking courtesy of Nora. Roll some tape and hang out with the girls. When you go through a gap in the rocks, snap back to reality and Autumn is back from her phone call. We get some kind of lore about her current job, then flash back once more into the 90s. We're filming us doing stupid shit, and when we find a decaying motorcycle, it inspires us to do a stupid bit around making fun of Dylan and Corey, as represented by Kat and Nora. We have two options here, neither of them great, and I'm picking the lesser of two evils, romantic. We go through that, and then we have to film the finale, which means a real kiss or a stage kiss. And I'm just gonna say stage kiss because I'm a consummate professional, and I treat my actors with dignity. Fake the kiss, much to Nora's dismay, and then leave this area and head on to the next, crossing a log. Film that shit, and we're off to the Overlook. Kat's taking a break or something, the other two head off in their own separate ways, and I choose to stay with Kat because, again, she's the best of them. We talk a little bit, and then we're up to the Overlook to watch the sunset and get the classic shot from every coming-of-age story ever, but at least this feels a little bit more Midwestern than the usual instance of it. We then hit the next check mark on the list, the usual, we're gonna be best friends forever. I've never had friends as good as you guys, and all that shit the outcast dweebs in film say. The deep teenager conversation continues, and I'm not gonna act like I haven't had this conversation before, but it's not exactly interesting for a game. However, it's time to get our final shot in that golden hour light all together. Then we're at home watching home movies on the TV, and it's really fun to see it be exactly what I shot and how I shot it. And I'll admit, it's really charming. Nora then asks us who the best actress is, and you know exactly who I'm picking. It's Kat, every time, without fail. And then the lights go all weird ghost mode, Nora grabs Kat's arm, then all of a sudden, we're watching something we didn't know we shot when the camera goes a bit nutso. We're at last night, we're walking, then the camera blacks out and we're back in the present. Swan admits she's been working on a book, and we could pick the genre between psychological horror and cryptids. And since in my restless dreams, I see that town, I'm picking psychological horror. Turns out, this shit based on us! We cut back to the past, and it turns out the characters breaking into this abandoned cabin in the book was actually a flashback. I am so ready for this to end up being The Lost Boys or From Dusk Till Dawn. May as well call this shit Stand By Me Till Dawn, which would be an amazing combination of movies, and I'll make that one day. That's a promise. Anyways, we're gonna break in, and as we search around, I think because I made a ton of effort to make Kat like me, she's following me around, and we can talk more to really get more of our relationship established and going. I got the chance to say, let's run away together, and somehow this feels more right than it did in Before the Storm, so I guess they learned something after all. Anyways, through the power of teamwork, we get a hook and enter the cabin. Once inside, I notice all kinds of weird glowing symbols, and there's a paper with information specifically for Swan, and oh my god, this is so cool. Why did it take this long to get interesting? Regardless, we open the lock, everyone else gets in, and we all plan to make this our new hideout because this is so weird and cool, and I'm so intrigued by it. And then we're back to teen bullshit. God damn it! You can't just introduce weird, witchy, creepy shit and then go back to dialing your friends in your room after yelling down to mom to not pick up the phone. I immediately called Kat, continued to strengthen our bond, and we're heading back to the cabin together because she wants to talk to us specifically. We're making it, boys! Anyways, we gotta get ready, so pack some stuff, and then flash forward to reality to talk to Autumn. She's concerned about meeting Nora again, wondering if she'll still be the same old Nora that we knew, and we try to remember what we packed. I, based on context clues, said I'd pack like a camper, pet the cat, and told him about Kat, then finished packing and headed on out. We cut to Swan and Kat in the woods talking, and we meet up with everyone else at our weirdo hideout. We're gonna film a before and after video, and this was the moment I realized I was only on the 15th scene of 25. Anyways, we film, and then we help some of the girls out, and you know I beeline straight to help Kat, and she starts talking classic lit to me, specifically Emily Dickinson. And do I have to explain the lesbian undertones of this conversation, or are you just gonna trust me? Lesbianic scenes aside, we've got to help someone else now, and that means Autumn, since Nora is just doing fuck all to help, and I, instead of offering Autumn a hand, talked about mushrooms because I'm a little gremlin like that. We talked camping, Swan's dad had knee surgery, and I can't stop pissing off Autumn on accident, and whatever, we clean the fireplace. We go to unpack everything, and in voiceover, we see the differences between Autumn and Swan. Swan yearns for the freedom of being truly unreachable, and Autumn has to know where her son is at all times. Then, as we unpack, we snap back to the present. Autumn asks why we forget the good things just as we forget the bad, and we say she is
not crazy
because memories are fleeting, and then we just get launched back in time once again. We set some stuff up, and we're making a banner for the band, and nope, we're back in the present. Stop yo-yoing me through time, game, Jesus Christ! Anyways, In the present, we can choose the color, and you already know it's going to be Kat's suggestion. And now we have a logo, a montage of video, and then we look out onto the lake, and we all start dicking around, having some fun, crank the music, get a montage of hanging out, do some flirting stuff, and it's a cool bit for the narrative. We eventually head home and head off into filming our interview with Nora. It's more backstory stuff, but I'm not a huge Nora fan to begin with, so I'm not going to bother to recap it at all, because neither of us really care. Back in reality, we talk about what Nora's been up to, and oh no, she's an influencer because she gave up on her dreams of music. I mean, there's a way to bridge the gap and make the transition from being a YouTuber to making music. Just look at Joji. That's the quintessential story of YouTuber to music icon. Regardless though, we try to remember the song we made, and we get sent back to the flashback zone. We're wandering off into the abyss, and look at this weird mushroom circle. And oh no, don't tell me this is a fae story. I was hoping for vampires or witches or gnomes. I'd be ecstatic if this was actually about gnomes. We all sit in the circle, and Kat's got a question for us all. Have you ever wanted to lay a curse on someone? And, well, I guess we're getting switch shit after all, because we're crafting a new hit movie, The Craft by Me, which is Stand By Me, but with all the magic stuff from The Craft. We all talk about people we'd maybe want to curse, and Swan talks about this guy who harassed her, and oh boy, Kat's the evil one. No, why? She's supposed to be the cool one. Back in the present, we start to remember the words, and flashbacks ensue, and lyrically they did capture something that sounds like a teenager would write, so good for them. Anyways, the question becomes about sacrifice to seal the deal, and god damn it, it's The Craft again! The sacrifice is the blood pact, just like in that movie, and just like in that, I do it because that's what felt right. Autumn probably pretty wisely doesn't do it, but hey, what's being a teenage girl without making deals with the occult? But more importantly, in the present, Autumn finished writing the lyrics. We examined them, and now Nora is here! Well, 3/4 of us are here now. I'm starting to be concerned about whether or not Kat is the evil one, or maybe I'm the evil one this time. I don't really know. We talk about all the stuff we've gone over, but Nora goes to get a drink, and we flash back once more, with feeling! We're talking about making a concert happen, and Kat wants to put on a show. Oh no. Before we can get to everything going wrong and Kat ending up in an insane asylum like What's Her Name in The Craft, we're back in the present talking about how life is now, and since we gotta catch Nora up to speed. Nora's married, she's got a fashion line that she and her wife run from home, and I'm the most curious to know what the hell happened to Kat, because now I'm concerned. Anyways, get our phone back, talk to Nora a little about how she's doing, but we get sidelined because the patient needs flashbacks to live. And as much as I want to forbid this, the game doesn't care and says, more flashbacks! We're sitting up in our room, packing things up, and we really don't wanna. But we finish up, and we're off to hang out at Fawn's Rest. That's what we named the cabin. Anyway, we're all out there for the night, and Kat talks about how she submitted our song to a poetry contest to try and win 4 tickets to go see Bikini Kill, and it's the classical hopes and dreams shit. We talk about where we'd go if we could go anywhere. I said Yosemite for whatever reason. Then we have to take a break to talk about modern life, and we show pictures and shit of all these things that we've done, how we'll never change, and all that good stuff. Then we're back in the past, and we're heading up into the cabin for the night. We've set up the fireplace, and we're playing some weird Truth or Dare card game, and it's the kind of thing you'd expect from teenagers playing Truth or Dare, and in the present, we get asked to remember what truth Nora asked us. It's either A, regrets, B, deepest fear, or C, crush. And obviously, we're gonna pick the cliche obvious question, because every Truth or Dare game ever goes there. So we pick C. We then get a couple of choices, and they're all thinly veiled options for someone in the room. So it's gonna be the writer in the room, and oh boy, the follow-ups are either I'll tell you one day or my lips are sealed. I'm going with someday because it's just the way it'll be. Now it's our turn to ask someone the question, And before I made my choice, I heard Autumn drop, "Swan's dares are gonna be freaky," or something to that effect, and it made me laugh. However, you know exactly who I'm asking, and it's gonna be Kat. Now, the options are let us read your diary or break a mirror. And boy, these are some lame-ass options. So we're gonna go diary and pray for the best. She's a little annoyed, and since it harmed the route I'm going for, I do back off, even if it means I don't really get to use a really good reference that I was planning on, and that makes me sad. Thankfully, it was the right play, and we got sent back to the break a mirror option. Kat does it no hesitation, and I'm a little bit bummed about how lame of a choice this was. Now it's Autumn's turn, and it's time for the mystery drink, which is a classic, but who cares? Now it's our turn to get truth or dared, and my gut says dare. And Kat's got a special one for us. It's time to play Bloody Mary, and since I ain't afraid of no ghost, it's time to go all the way through. We head out to the shit shack, and it's time to do the deed. We successfully see some weird entity, and then we're off to the cabin with everyone else. Back inside, Nora dares Kat to strip, and oh god, why are we doing this? All she gets is Kat's bra, and she took it off without removing anything else. Thank god. I don't know why they needed to do this, but apparently they did. Anyways, we flash forward because we feel like we're forgetting something, and it's Kat playing five-finger fillet with a real-ass knife. She does it with minimal damage to her hand, and for some reason the table is glowing. We can then ask present-day Autumn or Nora, and so I gave Nora the chance to recap her memories of that night for fun, and she's got nothing. But I press a little further, and she's got something on her mind. She asks why we care about the details so much, and it's because they're important, and we need to keep our promise. I apparently have been going on the anti-Nora warpath because I threw out the phrase, "you can't run from the past," which does inherently contradict what I said earlier in the game, but shh, no one cares that much. As Autumn and Nora argue, I notice the moths and get sent to the past because I remember everything.
What have I become?
Back in the past, we remember waking up that night and Kat's just not being there in the slightest. The front door is open and oh god, I'm preparing for the worst. Grab the camera and let's Blair Witch this bitch. We go outside and see some weird moths that make our camera go schizo mode. And oh baby, please tell me this is when we get that Lost Boys ass twist. We go through the woods, following the weird moths, and stumble across that mushroom circle, and also Kat. But there is no mushroom circle, since there was a ground here, but now it's gone. Kat is conscious and asking us if we're having trouble trying to sleep, and we have a weird anomalous sight here. We recorded a bit, then Kat asks us what we think is down there in the abyss, and I say pandemonium. Then Kat takes us by the hand, and then all of a sudden the rest of the gang is here, and I feel like the mood has been killed a bit by everyone else appearing. But whatever. We start talking about how this is our fault because we did the curse here. Autumn tries to logic it out. I side with Kat because of course I did, while Autumn and Nora are a little weird about it. We then come to the conclusion that we could maybe make trades with the Hole. And now I'm struggling to remember what horror story was about this concept because it's pretty cool. Anyways, Kat asks the Hole for some guidance and for us to get out. She then offers a pog, it disappears, and we flash forward to the next day. We're hanging out outside the movie rental place, and Kat says her wish came true, which means she shows us the Bikini Kill tickets that she got. Then Corey shows up, and oh god, please, no, don't tell me he's gonna steal the tickets and we're gonna cause him to get killed by making a sacrifice to the Hole. Well, the gang talks to the Spawn of Satan, I try to ignore him and his homosexual slur, and oh dear god, why? Well, turns out he was sent by Kat's dad to bring her home, and Kat gets ready to throw down. Then Nora gets ready to throw down. Then we get involved! Things keep escalating, and we flash back and see Nora's trade request. Then cut back to our fight against Corey. Then we tell him to piss off or we'll trash the bike. And I wonder if this is gonna come up to bite us in the ass later. Also, weirdly, the option doesn't match what Swan says at all. Corey says some shit about a guy named Dean to Autumn, and then we flash back to her trade request at the hole and how she didn't do it. Back to our fight, we then shut shit down, and oh god, this really is just the craft but with a magic demon hole in the ground. Because we keep seeing weird magic shit happen, and oh god, it's beatdown time. We then cut to our request, and I wish to be free, and after a strangely poetic request, we wrap up the Corey encounter, and it's beatdown time. We get tons of flashbacks to that night and the Corey encounter, everyone holding hands at the hole, and we get a kinda mid-song playing, and it feels like this is the end of the chapter, but I doubt it. And I doubted right. We snap back to reality and talk about how this was real and strange, and they hint at something happening at the ranch, and now I'm starting to figure out what our Stand By Me moment might be, but whatever. We then go to play pool. I chose to let Autumn tell her story about Kat, and we got nothing new. We play a little pool, but then flash back to Kat's interview, which is scene 23 of 25. So we're finally nearing the end of the tape. Thank God. Anyways, we start interviewing Kat, and it's fun. We get some flirting, and because I set up for that, but more importantly, we learn about how Corey changed her sister Dylan for the worst, and how this has impacted her, and a very pointed line about how she'd burn the ranch down if she could. And boy, I wonder where this is going! Anyways, we keep talking about music and stuff, and it's a well done scene that gives a lot of backstory to Kat, and it's a scene I kinda wish we got earlier. Anyway, she tells us about this deer named Gertie that she saved, and it's cool. We then finally get to know that the show is tomorrow, and I wonder if that's the scene where it all comes tumbling down. We get a phone call montage and then a setup for everything else, and Kat asks us to pick our makeup and she'll apply it for us. And the moment I saw goth as an option, I knew what I was gonna pick. But the fact that Swan directly references The Crow makes that graffiti reference all the more intentional, and I love that so much. And when it's done, Kat gets all nervous and blushy, and we can say we like her, and then we get cock-blocked by Nora and Autumn. God damn it! Anyways, it's time to put on a show at the bar we're at in the present, and boy, I can't wait for everything to go wrong. We're gonna sneak around out back of the bar, and before we try breaking in, we're gonna see if Dylan will give us the combo. She tries to pry why. We say we lost something back there and we got nothing of help from her. So we gotta explore because breaking the lock doesn't seem the most practical here. We find a combo to the lock in Corey's bag, and oh hey, we're in. We find an extension cord and a way to power it. We have to do a circuit breaker puzzle, which I solved really fast, and we throw stickers everywhere, and then get into another argument with Corey, but who cares, it's time for a show, and it's shockingly fine. It feels real low budget and grungy in a way that feels close to home, but the show gets cut off early, and I wonder if this is the moment it all comes tumbling down. But actually this time? Well, Dylan comes out, I take responsibility because I don't care, but Kat is ready to throw down. Things keep escalating, Kat gets a nosebleed while going ape mode, and things are going insane while she screams the lyrics of the song and then hits the deck. We then find the truth. Kat has leukemia and she's gonna die soon. Dylan starts blaming us for hurting her sister, even if Dylan and Corey and the rest of her family were doing a damn good job of that themselves. And hey, I called it this time. This is when it all comes tumbling down. I suppose it makes sense why we haven't seen Kat at all yet in the present. It's because she's dead, I think. I hope not, but I'm pretty sure she is. Anyways, we get a shot of the abyss, the current versions of us looking out into the parking lot, and the game ends with a cliffhanger for next time. We then get our good old friend the stats screen, and I did get the highest rank on Kat, something more. So I did alright for a dumbass. I can also see how some of my other choices went, and shockingly, I was fairly close to the majority in a lot of regards. but I did kind of put a lot more emphasis on Kat than anyone else, which isn't the most popular choice from what I gathered, but it is what it is. We're in a bit of a weird spot now because this game isn't exactly finished, so I only have about half a game worth of content to talk about, which means all of these opinions are subject to change once the whole story is done, but we've got a solid number of people to talk about, and we're gonna do it the best way we can, which is to say only talk about the main 4 plus a couple of the randos that fill out the experience, okay? To start, holy shit, Swan needs some anti-anxiety meds. I get it. You're the shy one, you've got some insecurities to deal with, and I understand, but dude, you need to chill out. Please, you're starting to stress me out. I get you've got a character arc to go on, and you're very much an introvert, but holy hell, just take some meds, brother, and relax. Jokes aside, Swan is an alright protagonist, albeit she feels more blank slate than the other protagonists of the Life is Strange series do. I mean, she does have a personality, and a lot of things that fill in her character, but it all feels a little generic. I can see what they were going for, that shy, weird girl with a camcorder wanting to document everything, but I feel like there's something missing. Maybe it's just comparing her to everything that came before, but she's the most mediocre of the protagonists in the Strange type game universe. But we'll touch on that later, so let's just head out on to our next character. Autumn is here, I suppose. You spend the most time with her throughout the game, which means she's the most fleshed out character here, and the one I'm the most ambivalent towards. I genuinely have no strong feelings in any direction for this character in either version, past or present, and that's really all I want to say. Nora is for sure the lamest one of the gang. She's perhaps the most 90s of anyone here, all the way down to the underage smoking and drinking, general grungy behavior, and hatred towards her stepmom, and all that stuff. But she's not poorly written. Like, her character has a lot of good stuff that sets her apart from the others. It's just that I don't care. She's the freaky one in the group, and she does fill that role well. It's just that she's also the East Coast kid whose family moved to the Midwest, and she just wants to leave this place behind character. And to be blunt, we've seen this character 1,000 times, and it's just not interesting. Now, who is interesting is Kat. Kat is easily the best of them, and it's not even close, which makes it all the more tragic that she's the dying and or dead one. I am hedging my bets on that one, like maybe she's still alive, or maybe this is the Craft meets Dead Poets Society, with Kat being the Neil character, who I have to note is played by Robert Sean Leonard, because I've been watching House MD in my spare time recently, and he plays Wilson. I have to mention this because this is the only time I'll ever get to talk about House in one of these things, so I'll take what I can get. Which also makes her the role of kinda like Chris in Stand By Me. All of which is to say, holy shit, this game is just an amalgam of every coming-of-age movie from the mid-80s to early 90s, but more importantly, that Kat has the most narrative weight, which doesn't explain why we get the least amount of time with her. That reflects a larger problem with the game overall so far, and we'll touch on that later. I know I've been saying that a lot, but I promise it's for a reason. But more on the point, Kat is the most unique character here, and perhaps the most quintessentially Midwestern of the cast, which is a big plus. She comes from a hunting family, she feels a little smothered, she has the drive to rebel against religion, and it's all that stuff that resonates and feels Midwest as all hell. I do need to mention that Kat is just a little evil, and I'll be honest, I think she pulls it off. Unlike Chloe, she can get away with being a bit evil because she's also very likable and she actually has a personality. She's very standoffish and closed off at first, but she has a lot of room to grow before they introduce the fact she's got a tumor, which sucks because she's the coolest one here. Legitimately, she's far and above the best. And I'm a little mad that we got cock-blocked by the others when she does our makeup, because it would have been pretty high up on the KTG tier list, and I wish they let it happen so I could do that. Assuming the setup is the same, I'd probably rank it above Vin, which would make Kat the number 4 slot and in the top 5. From 5th to 1st, it would be Vin, Kat, Warren, Cassidy, and Ryan. but we can't put it in there since we never really got the moment, so disregard what I just said. Overall though, Kat is a really high point of characters in this game, and from that high point, we drop to a low with Dylan and also Corey. I'm counting them as one because they're here, they're relevant to the plot, kind of. They're appropriately 90s bullies, and dare I say I wish they were used a bit more? I kind of love how they weren't afraid to have them be 90s bullies when it comes to the words they use, because it would have been disingenuous to be as committed to being a product of the 90s as this game is, and not use the words that were considered appropriate back then. And with the way the narrative is framed, you do have the opportunity to talk about what was once considered okay and how that's changed over time. But let's be real, neither of us care. I like how unapologetically mean and angry they are. I like how you actually get to stand up to them, and it's a good attempt at capturing the 90s coming-of-age movie bully. And that's about it on them. Now, to wrap this section up, it's my GOAT, the only side character I want to talk about. It's Gus! Gus is best in game, Bobby! Jokes aside, the fact that this is the first named human NPC we see in this game says a lot about the way this game is paced, and it does represent something I want to talk about later, and don't worry, we will. But now, let's face the music, shall we? The biggest issue for me is the lack of music, because legitimately, as I played the game, I was asking where it was, and when it was there, it felt a little anachronistic. You're talking a lot about Riot Girl music, and you only have one song by a Riot Girl band from the time, and the other licensed song from the time is a Cockatoo Twins song, while all the rest are from bands that formed in 2005 or later. Respectfully, what the hell are you doing? For as much attention to detail as you paid to capturing the references and aesthetics of the 90s, put the same effort and energy into the soundtrack. I'm not saying you have to play the entirety of Nevermind or 10 in the game, because that'd be absurd, and I'm sure it's a budgetary thing, but you really couldn't have secured the rights to more era-appropriate music? This game just doesn't have the angsty grunge soundtrack it should, because the narrative has the tone that would suggest it, but where is it? For a game with rage in the title, the soundtrack really doesn't reflect that. Also, speaking of words in the title, you didn't use In Bloom by Nirvana? That was the most obviously set up home run in the world. How did you miss the mark on that? Bad. But back to the rage part of the name, the soundtrack needs to reflect that. The music should be angry. The music should be aggressive. The music should indicate the rage and love these characters are feeling. The music should be the Bible for these kids that are none of the above, especially because their diets consist mostly of soda pop and Ritalin. I guess I'm asking for is a Jesus of Suburbia, or just give me any Green Day. That'd be cool. Like come on, the song She was right there, and it would have been period appropriate. Not to pivot too hard, especially because I'm going to pivot into a personal blind spot, but if you really wanted to keep an era-appropriate vibe and keep costs down, research the bands of the Midwest that would have been active around the time this game was happening. I pseudo-jokingly made a Midwest emo reference in the name of this section, but if there ever was a time to use it in your soundtrack, it'd be a game set in the Midwest. Now, yes, a lot of big bands in that scene did start a little later than 1995, and most of the big ones are from Illinois and Indiana, but that's close enough to Michigan to let it count. I'll even throw in the secondary caveat, which is if it were Midwest emo, you'd have a completely different narrative, since it'd most likely be a bunch of dudes that get relentlessly bullied in school crying in their garages as the main characters, but that is the vibe of the Midwest, and I would know. Not because I'm musically talented, but because that's the way it is. Everyone in the Midwest knows this. But, in all honesty, just put some goddamn grunge in the game. Make it angsty. Make these characters feel like outcasts. I mean, you can make them listen to Radiohead for God's sake, and it would be period appropriate because their first album came out in 1993.
When you were here before.
But I would have more dignity than to seriously suggest playing Radiohead, which is why I would like to once again mention The Cure, because Wish came out in 1992, and what's a better way to signify an outcast in the 90s than a goth kid? And the crazy thing is, You wouldn't have to change the narrative a bit to get away with having a soundtrack loaded with The Cure, Susie and the Banshees, The Cranberries, and Joy Division. This is one of the rare times where me suggesting a thing use music by The Cure isn't a purely self-indulgent wish fulfillment request. I mean it 100%, 1000%, that it would have been the better move for this game to use that style, especially because of how big an influence The Craft had on this game. To wrap it all up, I really do think they shouldn't have lost the records, because the records they did have weakened the experience by a fairly wide margin, especially because there were a lot of other paths available and they took the weakest link, which is a shame given how fantastic the vibes are otherwise. Glazed Ham from the future here. I forgot to talk about the mixtape you find in the homeless camp. What I really wanted to say about it is that not a single song on there appears in the game's soundtrack, but given that it's full of A, far more Pantera than there should be, and B, a lot of actual grunge including the only Nirvana song mentioned in the game, why did you not try to use this in the soundtrack? It would have been great and fit the vibes, and more importantly, been period accurate. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Good luck on making this appear naturally, future me. Get dunked on, Lamau. Before looking at anything else, I want to examine this game as a strange type. Just to define the term, a strange type is a game in the vein of the original Life is Strange, which is a choice-based 3D point-and-click puzzle and narratively driven game with little to no QuickTime events, which is what separates a strange type from a Telltale type, which is everything mentioned above, but with a lot of QuickTime events. However, there are some more stylistic things that define a strange type game, which are the criteria I'm going to be judging Lost Records against in this section. The core elements of a strange type tend to be the following: a story loosely emphasizing player choices, a focus on character relationships, the usage of a blended licensed and original soundtrack, a guiding pop cultural reference point, and some variation of gay, among other less exciting variables. So, from the top, we do have a story that emphasizes player choice in a fairly loose manner. See, the story in a strange type has a set plot that you always have to follow, with variations here and there that changed based on what the player chose to do, and the ending, typically, is in one of two ways. This has been the formula since the first game and has pretty much never changed. And in specific to this game, they've stuck pretty close to the standard, and a lot of the narrative has little changes here and there based on what you chose to do, but overall, it all leads to the same conclusion as far as I can tell. Now, I can't commentate much further than that, given that this is about half of the game, but I can make some logical assumptions and say they won't stray too far from the standard formula in the next part. That said, they did put a unique twist on the formula, which leads me to perfectly into the next criteria. This game handles the character relationships pretty damn well, I have to admit. I think this game's big twist on the formula is honestly making the character relationships the big focus, even overshadowing the player choice emphasis at times. While there is an overarching narrative, it's kind of secondary to the coming-of-age story in the forefront of the flashbacks, which is commendable. I tend to think the Life is Strange series does a better job on their characters, especially the side characters, than the main story most of the time, and that kind of rings true across every Strange type. But there are maybe 3 side characters that we physically see in the whole game, 4 if we count the characters we never see, which is just Swan's mom. Do you know how deeply disappointing this is for me? If you've heard me talk about any game, you'll know how much I love an eccentric cast of side characters, and how I'll generally latch on to one of them in the essay, with them being my champion, like Warren in Life is Strange, or Coach in One Tree Hill, and Shigusa in Battle Royale. And without that random character, the world feels really empty. I know this is supposed to be small town Michigan, but like, come on man, where's the one random side character that I'm supposed to prop up and talk about more than the main cast? Where are they? I miss them. I miss them a lot. Anyhows, romance is also tied into this point, and yeah, it's here. I like how they handled it. I wish they'd at the very least let you have a KTG moment, and maybe that's being saved for the second half of the game, and the pseudo KTG setup was just to tease the player a bit, but I don't know. I like how they integrate all the stuff into the game, like how it varies across timelines, which is neat. I like that there's 2 different versions of the relationship stats screen, and I'm curious to know how things change depending on who you get the coveted something more status with, but that is a problem for a different day. Given that we've already talked about the music, we can skip over that point since you already know this game gets a low score in that department, so let's get into the guiding pop culture reference point. If you're unfamiliar with the Life is Strange series, pretty much every game has a guiding pop culture reference point, like the original game having a fairly strong Twin Peaks influence, and Before the Storm being Rebel Without a Cause, and this game is no exception. Although here, I think this one wears its influences on its sleeves pretty blatantly, and I've talked about those influences that I've caught a lot, so we're gonna sidestep those and say that they sure are present. And of course, the variations of gay we've already covered because this is exclusively a lesbian game, kinda like Before the Storm. So, with all that said, we can now ask the most important question. And that question is this a good Strange type game? And this is an important question to ask because let me tell you why I haven't talked about the other big Strange type game. See, this game is made by Don't Nod, who made the original Life is Strange and the forgotten middle child of that franchise, Life is Strange 2, and most recently before this game, Jacint, which I haven't played. However, there is another game that they made between LIS2 and Jacint. And man, if you think I hate Before the Storm, you haven't seen nothing yet. Because I can stomach finishing that game, but I have never finished Tell Me Why. It's not for lack of trying, believe me. I have tried on multiple occasions, but I can't find the willpower to do it. Maybe if there's enough of a demand for me to just rip a game in half for an entire video, I'll do it and get more into why of what makes that game so miserable. But for now, let me tell you that Lost Records Bloom and Rage is far and above better than Tell Me Why, and is a perfectly fine Strange type game that, so far, meets the usual criteria and executes them fairly well. Alright, look, as a proud Midwesterner myself, this game just doesn't do it justice. This could have very easily been set in Washington State and very little would have changed, you know? The setting of a game is very important, and making effective usage of it matters a lot to me, especially when it's this close to home. I'm not from Michigan, as I'm sure you've gathered by now if you've seen a lot of my other content, but I've spent a lot of time up there and enough time to know some things that shade in the culture of the region. For example, one of the easiest things they could have referenced was Meijer. Now, if you're not from the Midwest or Michigan, Meijer is a Walmart-type chain grocery and home goods store, and it's kinda the grocery store chain in Michigan, because that's where it originated in. And they're so common that it's a really easy detail to drop in that almost instantly makes it feel more like Michigan. That, and maybe even referencing University of Michigan or Michigan State as colleges Autumn was looking at after graduation would be a small detail, but it would work in the context of the game and be an effective use of the setting, considering her goal is to go to college after graduation. Hell, you could even expand it to her wanting to go to Purdue, University of Illinois, Butler, Notre Dame, University of Wisconsin, quite literally any other Midwestern college, and it would feel a lot more real. Small details, but again, small details are what make these games work. Maybe the one effective use of the setting is the use of the woods, and using one of the Great Lakes as a set piece was pretty cool. That is perhaps the most this game uses the setting, and I'll admit, they got the vibe, for the most part, correct. A large part of growing up in the Midwest is the woods, and that's a non-negotiable. And as they do correctly comment on the game, it's a thing we're losing with new generations, and God, does that make me depressed. There's a certain magic to the Midwestern wilderness that this game gets, but it also misses some of the finer details, like the certified Midwestern classic that died off as the internet got good enough to actually host video. It's the porn mag in the woods. To explain, there was a phenomenon in the more suburban areas of the Midwest where at some point in every boy's life, you stumble across a peculiar rock or log or whatever, and underneath it or inside it, there was a pornographic magazine, and this was a communal location among the kids in the neighborhood because this is where you saw that. Yes, this is a thing that used to be and would have still been a thing in the 90s. I would have loved even an allusion to this little factoid, but that's because it's such a Midwest thing. Setting the porn mag aside, the way this game uses teens hanging out in the woods to dick around and have fun is a very Midwestern classic. I know that's a thing in every region of the US, but them Midwestern kids would absolutely sleep in some random ass abandoned cabin in the woods they found and hang out there all the time. If I had the chance to have done that, I would have, but I lived in the city, so that wasn't really an option for me, but that's not the point. Something else missing from this game is any traditionally Midwestern language quirks. Like, the closest they got to that was Autumn saying pop instead of soda, but man, they kind of missed some real good stuff. I'm a little sad about the lack of the exclamation "ope" in the game, because that's such an important part of the Midwesterners' vocabulary, especially in like the Michigan, more Indiana part. But even less forgivable than that, there is not a single reference anywhere to Faygo, or more importantly to me, a breaded pork tenderloin. Do you know how important the breaded pork tenderloin is to the Midwestern identity? If you're not from around here, no, you don't. And that's a damn shame, because holy shit, you're missing something truly special from your life. Anyhows, I'm sorry for rambling. I just kind of had to get this problem off my mind because I was morally obligated to talk about how this game did not do my home region any justice. Instead, they use it as a location that everyone just wants to leave and treat it as some kind of everyman location so anyone can relate to it, and it makes me sad to see a solid region that never gets the love it deserves in media. But, you know, what do I know, right? I only live here. The biggest problem with this as a game is that, holy Jesus Christmas shit, Batman, this game's pacing is abysmal. This game takes far too long to get to the real inciting incident, and while I have no problem with slow pacing in media, one of my favorite David Lynch movies is Inland Empire, and that movie's really slow and also 3 hours long. You need to be doing something to justify the pace. And I'm gonna be real with you, chat, this game needed a tighter script and to be about 5 scenes shorter, and it would be a whole lot better. I know they really wanted to explore and establish the characters, the world, and all of that, but if they didn't do as many of the flashbacks as they did, I think this would have been a much smoother experience. I know they wanted the framed narrative because it's a unique way to tell the story, but also the sheer amount of back and forth for scenes in the present that only last for a minute or two before throwing you right back into the past was giving me some whiplash and really took away from the experience. Perhaps my favorite thing they did right as a game is the dedicated photo mode button. I need more games to have this feature because man, it makes my life so much easier, and I do think it's kind of cool. And also something this game does as a game that I think is cool is how they did the collectibles, because it matches the aesthetic so well and gives a fair bit of player choice in how they want to remember their summer in 1995. It's a cool choice, it fits naturally into Swan's character, and it makes this stand out as a game compared to some of the other Strange type games. Now, as I played this game, which is an objectively fine Strange type, I put it into a different context and it shifted how I felt about it. I thought a little harder about this game and specifically how Tell Me Why shaded the experience I had here, and it reminded me of a song lyric from Tom Petty's The Last DJ. Quote, "As we celebrate mediocrity, all the boys upstairs want to see how much you'll pay for what you used to get for free." Now, ignore the part about how much you'll pay and just focus on the first part. This game is perfectly fine, but it's not special, and most of the reaction to this game that I've seen has been extreme praise, saying it's the best Strange type since the original. And while it may be Dontnod's best game since the original Life is Strange, don't crucify me for that. I haven't played Jassant yet, and that game looks kinda cool. That isn't saying much. Life is Strange 2 is a 4 out of 10 game, and while I'm not going to give a rating to Lost Records yet since it's not finished, I can give you a little insight and say that right now I'm feeling a score above a 4, but that's not saying much. It means the game is, so far, mediocre. It's got some good elements to it, but it's also got a fair bit holding it back. And maybe these are problems that get fixed in the second half and they make a game that truly rivals the original LIS's quality, but I can't promise you that. All I can do is play what I want to play and say what I want to say. Hey, hey, hey. Did any of that make sense? No? I figured. So let me put it more bluntly. This game's praise is a celebration of mediocrity. As a game, it gets so close to having fully committed to the aesthetic, yet it falls short in the most crucial category in nailing that part. The pacing makes it really hard to recommend, because even without having to stop and write about everything like I am required by my job to do, this game is so goddamn slow, and the constant back and forth between the past and present is a little nauseating, because it just keeps happening. As expected, we spend most of this game in the past, and the time we spend in the present is generally too short to be worth something. And also the fact that in the present we are stuck in first person makes me a little sad because the camera needs to be consistent. And in a Strange type game, the camera needs to be behind you, third person, over the shoulder style, pretty much at all times. Or you need to commit to being a first person the whole time. You cannot have both. You must pick a POV and stick with it because it keeps the controls standardized and keeps things consistent. So, all these things said, at the halfway point of the game, will I give this game a follow-up video when I have the time? This is a question I had to ask in the beginning because I genuinely knew nothing about the game, and while I was willing to commit to finishing half of the game for the sake of getting a video out of it, I wasn't sure if it'd be worth going all the way. Now, having played and talked about the game, I think it'd be interesting to give it a round 2, see how much the final cut will change my opinions, and who knows, maybe they'll pull off a divine miracle and make the second half become this truly incredibly powerful coming-of-age story with a real emotional payoff on what it means to grow up in the Midwest and the friends you make along the way. Or maybe it'll be a nosedive into the abyss that the gang found in the woods, as every Midwestern child does. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Now, I do regretfully have to leave this video on an unsatisfying note like this, because I can't in good conscience give a final rating to an unfinished game that is going to get finished, but I can give a temporary rating of 5 out of 10, which is fair enough for a half-finished game. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go return some videotapes. I've been your host, A Leg of Glazed Ham, and thank you for watching. It always, always means a lot to me. And I can't wait to cover the rest of this game, if only to get a 2-parter out of it that I can then turn into a 3rd video that puts the whole package together into a nice and wonderful essay, but that's a problem for a future Ham. Thanks again, and good night!